Buddha's time. Buddha awakened to the Dhamma on the 15th day of the 6th lunar month, after which he savoured the bliss of liberation in various places, each location for 7 days, for a total of 49 days. So enjoying that great bliss, the highest happiness, this happiness that came from his awakening to arahantship, attaining to being a perfectly self-awakened Buddha. This most subtle, refined kind of happiness. And so he got the feeling that in order for people to be able to enter into this kind of happiness, which is so refined, it would be difficult for them to do that due to the ignorance, craving, and clinging, which leads them to find happiness in the world rather than happiness in the Dhamma. So, reflecting in that way, Buddha gave rise to the Dhamma of upekkha, of equanimity, until the Brahma God came and invited him, and he contemplated that invitation and then taught the Dhamma, realizing that there are beings who have only few kilesas, few defilements. So we should look to see for ourselves in the happiness that we seek out. You see that all beings, from the time that they were born, all hearts, whether those of people or of animals, want happiness, and they don't want pain or suffering. And so we cultivate this heart of loving kindness, wishing, may I be well and happy, may other beings be well and happy, seeing how all beings desire happiness, wishing that we don't have vengeance or will towards one another, that we may be distant from that vengeance, not wanting beings to be separated from the things that they like and love, whatever they find pleasing, to be with those things. And for those people who have a lot of ignorance, craving and clinging, to not act in ways which just aggravates that and promotes those qualities. So we're developing, by doing this, developing the Brahma Viharas, developing these qualities of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimity, wishing for happiness for all beings, seeing how all beings are seeking out this happiness. The children seek out the kind of happiness of a child, and as they grow up, then the happiness that they seek also develops as well. And so they seek out different kinds of happiness, and that they want to be able to get the things that they like and depend upon themselves. And so they study, so that in the future they're able to get wealth so they can find happiness with that wealth. But the happiness that they gain is happiness that comes through sights and sounds and odors, taste, tactile sensations. This is Kama Sukhalikana Yoga. But the happiness from samadhi, from a mind which is firm and peaceful, they're not aware of that kind of happiness yet. Or sometimes they have experienced it, but they don't know what that was. It's like sometimes people chant, maybe a child is chanting at school, and they feel a certain degree of peace and happiness, rapture in the mind. And they think, well, this is odd. What is this? What's happened? This is something which had occurred for me before, when chanting Ong Dai Prasamput, the Sarapanya verses, that there was this joy that came up, and the hair on my body stood on end. This was Kanaka Samadhi, but I didn't know what it was at that time. And I asked my friends whether this happened to them as well, and they said that it didn't, it was just me. And so this can happen when we chant. And for me, I've really liked this certain chant, this verse, right, from then till I became a monk. But for the most part, the happiness that we seek out is lokya, so it's a worldly happiness. But a happiness which is higher than that is the happiness that comes from goodness. So that which we develop from generosity, that can give us a joy in our hearts, from helping those who are going through hardships, that can give us happiness in our hearts, or giving mindfulness and wisdom to others. So a teacher that teaches children, for instance, there's a contentment and a joy in their hearts that they get from that goodness. So the happiness, the goodness that comes from generosity and from virtue is like this. There's also the goodness, the happiness that comes from samadhi as well. So from cultivating a heart which is full of joy, which is cool and at ease. But this is still lokya. This is still a worldly kind of happiness. But as we carry on practicing, then the true state or nature of the Dhamma can appear for us. And then the heart feels so much happiness and this great spaciousness and ease. So the Buddha taught us to go and sit at the foot of a tree and enter into first jhana, and then second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. And there's immense happiness that comes from that, from a heart which is really spacious and open, at ease. But it's quite difficult to find people who are capable of doing that. It's also not something that's beyond our efforts if we really set our hearts on it. And if we have the previously accumulated virtue and goodness and bharami, then we may get a lot of happiness from contemplating the body as well, seeing the body as being something unattractive, as being just composed of natural elements, as being not self, that there's a brightness and a freshness, a joy that comes into the heart. So this is entering into Lokuttara Dhamma, the transcendent Dhamma. And with this, then, a happiness appears in the heart which can last for many months or many days. So people who are able to cultivate samadhi to this level, they get a firm conviction because they've seen the results of samadhi for themselves. So they want to carry on cultivating that samadhi. So therefore, when we come to these morning or evening chanting and meditation sessions, we have a good opportunity to be cultivating samadhi. But if we don't come to this, then we're not cultivating samadhi. That we just allow the mind to follow its moods and these unskillful and wholesome sense impressions. And if we do that, then the days and the nights, they pass by in vain, not giving us any benefit. So therefore, we can't afford to believe in our own moods and feelings, but rather we need to be intent, to strive and have effort, to find this satisfaction and pleasure in chanting, in meditating. And this should be even more the case for those who have ordained. You should have a high level of sincerity, finding this wholesome desire and pleasure in cultivating samadhi, in putting forth effort, in chanting with mindfulness. So for the evening, we can come and sit 30 minutes beforehand, or come in to the upper hall at 6 p.m, do walking meditation, sitting meditation for an hour. And if we do this very frequently, then the mind will settle into peace, and we'll see the value that comes from meditating. And so we don't just let our minds go like that, just don't abandon them. Don't allow ourselves to believe in all the moods that come up. Because if that happens, then those pull the mind down and pull them into the stream of the defilements. So we need to oppose that current, need to go against that, go against the defilements in order to enter into the current of the Dhamma. So if in the morning we don't feel like getting up, well, then we make ourselves wake up. We wake up and we go to the chanting, we go on alms round. Because for the lay people to offer us food, it's not easy. They have to wake up early, they have to have worked in order to get the money to get that food for us. And so for us then to wake up at 4 a.m, do the chanting, go on alms round, it's not all that difficult for us to do that. So we should make a determination within ourselves that if we don't turn up to the chanting, then we just eat plain rice, or we don't eat at all that day. That we torture our hearts like this. We need to do that in order to awaken ourselves to the danger of the cycle of samsara, of birth and death. So therefore we need to put in our efforts. And as monks, we really need to do this, need to try. Because what a monk means is one who is holy, who is exalted. But if we don't put in our efforts, then we're not holy, we're not exalted. It's just a name that we're called, that our hearts aren't in that state. We just put on the robes, that's all. But the hearts are not monastics. In order for them to be a monastic, then we need to have effort to go against the defilements. So meditation monks, we need to have meditation objects. And just like for study monks, they need to be studying in order for them to progress through the very various levels of Pali studies, from the first to the second and third and fourth to the highest, the ninth. They need to have a lot of focus and striving to be able to do that. So for us, we have our goal as well as meditation monks, and that goal is to see the Dhamma. So we should take our kawat, so the standards of the monastery, as our means to measure ourselves. So if we don't go to the morning chanting, for instance, if we don't go out on alms round, we don't do the chores, we don't do the evening chanting, then what that shows is that the defilements are in charge of our hearts. But for those who go early, who go to the hall and they open up the doors and the windows, they sit meditation, they're getting a lot of merit from that. So may you train in this, and you really need to torture the defilements. You need to go against them. And tell yourself, well, if I don't wake up, then I will just sleep in the sala for the next day. You need to set that intention yourself. You need to set down this determination of truth. That if we know that we're not going to want to go, then you tell ourselves, we'll just go sleep in the sala, go sleep in the hall. If we don't go to the evening chanting, then we don't sleep in our kutis, but rather we go down to the morning hall and sleep there instead. And if in the morning don't want to do the chanting, then we don't eat, or we just eat plain rice. So we need to be sincere like this, and to be on top of our defilements, to know them for what they are in time. So we shouldn't just rely upon our teacher to be forcing us or to control us, that we should have this inner sincerity within our own hearts. So if we don't go for the first time, then we go sleep in the sala. And if we still don't turn up after that, then we can move kutis and go stay in a very small kuti. If that still doesn't work, then we just move out of a kuti altogether and go and live in the sala for a while, for 5 days, 7 days. And if we do that, then we're going to want to go to the chanting, because we need to have something there that we're going to lose. And if we know that we're going to lose that, then we'll think, well, it's better to go off to the chanting. Need to torture the defilements like this. Because if we just allow ourselves to follow the path of least resistance, to follow what's easy and pleasurable, and then avijja, tanha, upadana, so ignorance, craving, clinging, they are an ogre within ourselves, or they're a sulaka, or a preta, or a hungry ghost. And they're controlling us, they're dragging us along. And so the people who don't have the bravery to go against them, and then they get pulled into being deceitful. So therefore we should put in our efforts, and we should help each other out as well. Because if each person goes to the chanting, then they're giving energy and encouragement to one another. You see that this person's there, that person's turned up as well, and we're helping one another out in this way. So for the people who are staying off by themselves, and they don't need to practice in this way, that they've trained already, they've already done this meditation, and they don't need anyone to force them to chant. They're able to wake themselves up at 4 a.m. and do the meditation by themselves, to do this without skipping out on it. But to get to that point, they need to have trained with an awakened teacher, a great teacher first. So this is something that we need to pass ourselves. So may you set your heart on this, to strive, be sincere. This is even more the case for monastics. We really do need to try with this and to have our meditation objects with us, whether it's Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, or Kesa, Loma, Naka, Danta, Tacho, hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. These are things which, when we pursue, they give peace to our hearts, and that peace leads to happiness. And when we have this happiness already, then we don't need to endure anymore. But when the defilements are strong, then we need to bring up this quality of endurance. And they're like, we could give a comparison to someone in the world who is really skilled at something, and they really train at something until they become the best in the world at that particular activity. And our defilements are like this. They're like the most skilled things in the world. So we need to put up a good fight against them in order to enter into the stream of the Dhamma. And there's great happiness there that arises when we get into that stream. So the opportunity that we have now, it's a good one. It's not like it's a bad opportunity. because we're able to practice, that we have ordained and we are practitioners. We have the time. So don't just let this time pass by. The days, the nights, and then months, and then years. And soon we're going to enter into another rains retreat. But rather use the time that you have so that the Dhamma appears for you. So you need to train hard, need to keep the core, the standards of the monastery strictly, to be able to rely upon yourselves. But we also help one another out as well. So we have friends and we help each other, invite each other, take each other to the chanting, take each other out on alms rounds, go to the evening chanting as well. So to help one another out in this way. So the Buddha, he gains the bliss of liberation, and this is the highest bliss. But for us, we are not like that yet, and so we need to put in our highest efforts to get there, so that eventually this joy and rapture comes up within ourselves. And it can come when we're not expecting it at all. And for me, this is what happened. There was this great rapture that came up, and I didn't think it was going to happen. It's a lightness in the body and the mind. So this happened during my fourth vasa, fourth year as a monk. And there was this lightness in body and mind for an entire month. And that the mind settled into samadhi and wisdom arose. And then the next time when this happened, it lasted for 6 months. And after that for a year, that it's possible for there to be this much happiness in the heart. And when we're able to destroy the defilements, when we're able to reach the level of stream entry of Sotapanna, there's great happiness there. And this is the happiness of transcendence, Lokuttara. So this is not above what we're able to set our hearts upon. So as monks, we need a goal. We need to rely upon the standards that our teacher sets down. He needs to have the virtue of sila and to keep our acts within the boundaries of the Patimokkha rules, and to be maintaining a sense of control over our body, speech and mind. So may all of you set your hearts on this.